Welcome to the Saturday Sex Show. So, do we ever have a good show for you today? So, here we go. Let's get right into our subject. Now, it's a good thing you guys didn't hear what I just said because it's probably X rated. So, I'll just start over again. Okay, so here we go. I already figured the mic out.
Sorry about that.
It's my good wife. We always have a backup here, really quick. You see, when we stream, there's a little bit of a lag. So what I'm doing probably gets out to the real world in about 30 seconds. So it's pretty quick. And I have a panel here, so I have to always have my mic on. So I want to say hi to K. Fred. Thanks for joining us today. SDR, hello. Hello to you. And I am Nancy. Sound good now? Thank you for joining us today. I am Nancy. And Midnight 619. I can heat you now, or hear you now. Yeah. Good one. Okay, so everyone's online. We have our audio working, and we have an interesting subject. Perhaps a lot of you... now, first of all, to qualify for any online now and upcoming, we do on this channel cater a lot to the ex-JW community, JW community. I was in the org for many years, 30. But what the information that we're talking about is good for others out there, and there's a lot happening in the big wide world when it comes to jw.org and shunning, disfellowshipping, and the Norway courts used the word exclusion. Now, JW.org lost their charity rights, or some of their rights in Norway as a religious group. They can no longer marry is one of the things they lost, one of the privileges. I think they lost perhaps some tax exemptions. Not sure. But we'll have to do that on another story coming up, because they, of course, appeal everything, and these things can run for years when you're dealing with Jehovah's Witness lawyers. They like to fight, and they're always at war. So when they talk about war and you go on the website, their website, and we can do it. For instance, we ran an article. I'll just go here. We ran... yeah, there we go. We had a thumbnail out, a video out just yesterday or the day before on the world military spending. And JW.org is talking all about the world's military spending, and you can find out more. So we went in and found out more, and we did that video. But they just use a bunch of Old Testament scriptures. But the ironic thing is that here they are talking about war in a negative way, but yet they're at war with the whole world. Their lawyers are at war with the whole wide world. Every time we turn around, there's a new legal case. So it's interesting times if you're if you're in the org and you're seeing people leave, you're going to see more people leave. And I think that people are going to be leaving in the dozens eventually here, because there's just too much information out there. And some of it has to be true. It can't all be false if you're in the org. So now we're going to go to a website here that, where am I here? Right here. This website is put out and managed by people, some people perhaps that are in the org, PMO, and they're gathering information continually to these types of sites. This is one of them. I'm not sure if any of you have been. I'm sure you have been on this site, because we use this information as video creators. We use this information all the time. It's very accurate, and this site is called AvoidJW.org, so it's easy to remember. And this is where we're getting this information from on the Jehovah's Witnesses mysteriously delete shunning videos. So what's happened? The Jehovah's Witness delete controversial shunning videos. So we're going to learn about this. Now we're also going to go to the home of this site here and look at who started this site. Jason Wine, I believe. We're going to read about him. He's retiring, and give him a big thumbs up. He's done a lot of work. So he has people in place taking over this site and so on and so forth. But they really do an excellent job. So we're just going to look at how they presented the information here today. I thought they did a fabulous job. So here it is. Excuse me. By the way, the lighting in my studio is a little different. I'm just looking around here. We moved the studio out of the house, and we're now in the I turn that light down. We're now in the old shop. I had an old solar shop, so we're getting ready to move, kind of a thing. Okay, so the lighting's better because it's dark in this room and it's all pretty well adjusted. It doesn't change. Now, getting back to the article here, Jehovah's Witnesses mysteriously delete shunning videos. So the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at this article is Norway. You know, they're in the limelight because of shunning. In Germany, they're being investigated because of shunning. All over the world, there's investigation going into shunning. In Canada here, and in the description below, if you're Canadian, you can sign a petition. Help us out in Canada, because we have a petition for the Canadians to stop treating these organizations as charities. There's billions of dollars going to the churches and the religious organizations and the charities in Canada and the US and all over the world for that matter. Lots of money goes toward charity organizations, and Jehovah's Witnesses have their hands out, the organization. But yet, when it comes to charity within, or let's say a Bethelite, you know, they cleaned house in Bethel there. I was watching a video here a few years ago. They cleaned house in Bethel, and they packed the boxes of the Bethelites and put them in their cars and basically kicked them out, threw them on the street. Just excuse me for a moment here. Now, problem is on a live, you can't really cut the cough. Now, the Bethelites got thrown right on the street. Now, I was online watching Marcus, one of the Bethelites, tell his story 6 years ago. And it was sad, very sad what goes on when it comes to charity within the organization. There is none. In fact, they sent a letter out and said that brothers and sisters should seek out the food bank if they're out of work or need help. You know, seek out government programs. And there's no charity within Jehovah's Witness, even for their own. So here's what's happening. Shunning is becoming a big thing all over the world. They're getting put up in the limelight because of shunning. Japan, same thing, because they're looking at shunning children. You see, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, they encourage you to get baptized. The assembly's coming up, the district assembly, and that's when the majority of their people get baptized. And there will be a lot of young people getting baptized. Now, if a 13 or 14 or a 12-year-old, messes up a bit, they'll probably go easier on them, but they'll only disfellowship them maybe for 6 months because they're so young. But the problem is that child has to go through an embarrassing period of time in that child's life, and that child will never forget it. And we did a video, I think it was last week, on shunning and our brains and what goes on in our brains. And if you're interested in the subject and you haven't had a chance to see it, it's on our live section. So this shunning is a huge thing, and it's being brought up by professionals all over the world. Now, mysteriously, they had these videos lined up for the district assembly, and they pulled them off. And the other one is that Rebecca Vardy, she's in the limelight because of shunning. She's a movie star's wife or something. I think this article covers it. Okay, here it is. As Jehovah's Witnesses kick off their 2023 regional convention season, something very odd took place. 2 videos intended for the Witnesses' online version of the convention have been deleted from the streaming version of the assembly program with no explanation, but not before they were captured by AvoidJW.org. And how they can do this, we don't ask questions. The videos portray a disfellowship mother attempting to reach her single daughter by phone, but is rejected by her daughter, who struggles with the decision to shun her own mother. The first video takes place at Elsa's kitchen table. Her phone rings and we hear her thoughts. So here it is. We're going to play the video. I'm actually going to get right off the screen here, and I'm listening in the background. I'm going to shut my mic off. Is this working? I think I can turn my desktop audio on. Okay, I'm going to turn the desktop audio on.
Mom's disfellowshipping still feels so raw.
Elsa, please speak up. I miss you so much. I just want to hear your voice.
It's such a struggle. I miss her. She taught me the truth, gave me a stable life. She was my closest friend. What's the harm in just calling once in a while? To chat. Maybe I can even help her to come back to Jehovah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we're working out in the shop. Usually my wife keys me on the auxiliary mic, but I get into the video and I lose track of the sound. You almost need a sound technician when you're doing lives. And I can understand why people, they get into the studios and they have 2 or 3 people. You have one guy just doing the sound, keying the mics. Because if you don't key the mics, if you don't do that, you get all kinds of reverb and crosstalk, and it gets messy. So we do the best we can. We're out in the shop now, so our internet signal is very weak. I'm on 2 bars. And my wife is in the house, which is a little bit of a walk away. And so she's streaming it. So she just walked out here and let me know my mic was off. So sorry about that. I'll get better with this as time goes on. But getting back to this video, it's amazing that in this video, the mother was, the daughter talked about how the mother, she did a good job raising her, did all the right things raising her, but for some reason she has to shun her mother. Probably because her mother woke up or something and just quit going to the hall. So she's now got to shun her mother. And they make it look like, here's the spin. And JW.org spins things, and we're catching them on the news as much as we can. Now, they're spinning this one, that the daughter is a victim. The daughter in the Kingdom Hall is now a victim because the mother left. And the mother's the bad person. She's the one being disfellowshipped. But now the daughter is the victim. This is how they spin it in this video. So even though they didn't run this video, AvoidJW.org gave us this video so that we could still break it apart, because this is the thinking of the Watchtower. And then what about the 10 commands? The 4th command says, honor thy mother, honor thy father. So JW.org goes back to the old scriptures, the Psalms, all the Old Testament for all kinds of stuff. In fact, most of their doctrine is based on the Old Testament. Paradise, earth, it's all Old Testament scriptures. All that blood stuff, all Old Testament scriptures. So then they take the 10 commands, and you go into the 10 commands, they say, no, we don't have to follow it. It blew me away when I read that. You go to JW.org. I've done videos on that. But anyways, we're going to carry on and see what happens next. So here it is. Mom's disfellowshipping still feels so raw, says Elsa as she declines a phone call from her mother. The young woman listens to her mother's 8-second voicemail. Elsa, pick up. I need you. I need to hear your voice. Elsa narrates a voice in her head. It's such a struggle. I miss her. She leans up against the kitchen and begins to reminisce, as we've seen in the video. So the first video ends with Elsa staring pensively at her phone. She knows very well that she could be disfellowshipped for brazen association with her disfellowshipped mother. The second video takes place inside a mock Kingdom Hall, where we break into the speaker mid-sentence. Abel was essentially a spiritual orphan, but regardless of what his parents chose, he listens to Jehovah and patiently waited on him to fulfill his promise. So we're going to get into the second video. Okay, so I'm going to switch that over, and I'm going to try this mic thing again, and hopefully I turn it off. So I'm going to turn my mic off right now and turn the desktop mic on.
Abel was essentially a spiritual orphan, but regardless of what his parents chose, he listened to Jehovah and patiently waited on him to fulfill his promises.
I never thought of it that way. What has Jehovah promised me if I patiently wait? Spiritual brothers? Sisters? And mothers. I focus on what I do have and wait patiently, someday what I don't have may even come back to Jehovah.
Abel was essentially a spiritual orphan, but
Okay, so I got my audio turned back on this time. And so just to analyze that a little bit, we're going to get into it here and analyze it. But here, it's no wonder they deleted this, because this is an educational video on how to disfellowship your family. This is teaching people on how to disfellowship, use the exclusion rule. If it was a child, this video would teach you how to disfellowship and shun a child, a young person. It's all the same. It's treated all the same. And the disfellowshipping can be for just not agreeing with the organization, just asking a few questions, or just saying, you know what, I don't agree with that doctrine. I don't agree with 1914. I don't agree that this generation will not fail. I believe that there's problems there. If you spoke out like that in the organization, you're gone. You're disfellowshipped. And that's why this is viewed as discrimination. Now, if we want to fight this in the legal system, we can't fight it as shunning or disfellowshipping. Those words don't work. We have to fight it in the legal system as discrimination. So you have to look for where you've been discriminated as a person because of this act. The disfellowshipping or the shunning is the act of discriminating. So the discriminating is what they're doing. They're announcing your name. They're discriminating. You can't associate. You can't eat with this person. Discriminating because they spoke out. You see, that's not Jesus speaking. That's man speaking. So the governing body, to their members, that's why they're viewed as cults, is because they become the authority figure over Jesus, over God. And they try to twist it. They put a twist on everything and try to make it look like it's from God. So let's read what AvoidJW put in here. They said the camera closes in on Elsa's face, her thoughts. They go on to kind of reiterate it. And they say in the next scene, Elsa is once again phoned by her nameless biological mother. And again, she rejects her mother's call. Elsa consults her silver Bible and the tablet computer to reinforce the policy to cut her mother completely off her life. You see, they go, and that's it. It's a policy. It's a policy in the Watchtower. This is not in the Bible. If you go in the Bible, first part of the Bible, honor your mother and your father. It's right there. So, but they've made that invalid, and they say they don't have to do that. Now, in the next scene, so if I focus on what I do have, wait patiently, someday they'll come back to Jehovah, and that's the whole thing. That's the part of it right here. Let's just highlight that. If I focus on what I do have and wait patiently, someday what I don't have may even come back to Jehovah. So they're telling the people that if they wait patiently and listen to the governing body, that someday their mother or their child will come back to Jehovah. That's what they're saying. So if you embarrass your kids enough, if you embarrass your mom enough, if you humiliate her enough, if you discriminate your mother enough, if you ignore her, put her on ignore, and do everything the Bible says that is not loving, the harshest treatment that you could give your mother, if you do that and wait patiently, because us, the governing body, are telling you to, they might come back. And if they don't, they're going to be roasted. That's the JW theology. So if you're outside of the organization, you're looking in on this, this is what it is on the inside, and you probably see from some of the comments. Now, the conclusion of the second video leaves the viewer with the distinct impression that Elsa's mother is a nameless, disfellowshipped quantity, a dead lump of flesh, described by the writer as what? instead of who. Isn't that what they did there in that video? The streaming version of the Jehovah's Witnesses Assembly for 2023 is not intended to be a replacement for the in-person assemblies, but an alternative for JW members who may be unable to attend their local convention for various reasons. The video dramas and reenactments are interspersed between and within the speeches given by high-ranking members of the church. The Shunning videos were originally slated to be embedded into the Saturday afternoon session during the speech titled, "Better to be patient than to be haughty in spirit. Imitate Abel, not Adam." The focus of this particular talk is on the benefits of enforcing the shunning of close family members who are disfellowshipped, with a special emphasis on parent-child relationships. The speaker chosen for the streaming speech was Corey Wallington, announced as a member of the Wallkill, New York headquarters facility. There he is. According to the court document sourced by AvoidJW, Washington is a member of the potent and influential service department of Jehovah's Witnesses and is identified as a service secretary, the right-hand man for the Desmond position. Desmond and service secretaries are responsible for managing of the internal affairs and disciplinary processes used by the Jehovah's Witnesses, particularly in situations involving child sexual abuse, disfellowshipping, and other cases considered too complex for local congregation elders to handle on their own. So that's kind of what this guy's all about, eh? Corey Wadlington. The men in these positions correspond and speak with congregations throughout the branch territory using a confidential system of 3-digit codes. These codes allow the service department members to conceal their identities when speaking with congregation elders. Interesting. Code system. We're going to learn their code. The code currently in use by Wadlington as of February 2021 is SST and has been associated with numerous child sexual abuse cases and corresponding documents according to internal church documents obtained by AvoidJW.org and jwchildabuse.org. That's another good site, by the way. It seems no real surprise that Mr. Wadlington was selected to represent and enforce this disfellowshipping and shunning arrangement by giving a speech highlighting the importance of loyalty to this destructive and controversial church policy. Questions have been raised regarding the timing of the removal of these two videos, especially in wake of the recent release of the documentary Rebecca Vardy, Jehovah's Witnesses and Me, a UK-based program that delved into the harrowing effects of disfellowshipping, shunning, and the prevalence of child abuse among witnesses. So yeah, that's all over the news. We tried to look that one up, but it wasn't available in North America. It's only available in the UK. Channel 4 is carrying it. So if you're in the UK, you might be able to do a video on it. Vardy, as a known celebrity in England, revealed that she was left unprotected as a minor after experiencing abuse and shunning, despite the fact that she was never a baptized member. So that's how she's hitting the news. And when you talk about news, Jehovah's Witnesses, JW.org, they hate bad news, and they work so hard at spinning the news. And so perhaps this is also, this Rebecca Vardy is also a big part of why they pull these videos out. So she's a known celebrity. There's a lot of news on her. And she was unprotected as a minor. She experienced abuse. So there's a big story there. And I think the story's covered by some of the ex-JWs as well. Even more significant may be the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses have lost their registration as a religious organization in Norway, in part as a result of social isolation policy practiced by the witnesses when disfellowshipping minor baptized members. The Norwegian government is likewise concerned that the rights of individual members of the JWs are violated by denying baptized members the opportunity to leave the church on their own terms without loss of relationships and communications with other members, including close family. And that's, we did a video on that as well, and so have a lot of others. But that's the big thing, and that's what we're talking about here in Canada. So if you're just tuned into this video, in the description, there's a link if you're Canadian. Please link over to it. It's if you're Canadian, you can sign it online. It's easy to do. You just link on the internet, and I forget all the questions, but there's not a lot of questions. And then you're giving us support. And once we have so many signatures in Canada, we can take that to Parliament, and we can start the process. So, but it takes a few signatures. So thanks so far for all of your support, for those of you out there. And we'll keep working on this together. We can work just like Norway, in Canada. The Canadian courts already have a class action for CSA here in Quebec happening against Jehovah's Witnesses. So if you're in Canada, that's something to look into. And I looked into discrimination here in Canada. If you've been discriminated by Jehovah's Witnesses here in Canada, and you have to check the laws of your own country, but in Canada it's 1 year. You have to report the discrimination within 1 year, and report. There's a way of reporting it online, and getting the process going. So keep that in mind. It's good to get, if you've been discriminated and you are being discriminated by Jehovah's Witnesses, you have 1 year to report it. And it might be, and you got to work on the level of discrimination, not shunning. Everyone's allowed to shun. Hutterites, Mennonites, Amish, they shun. Different groups shun. There's different reasons for shunning, but it's the discrimination. And you got to check into the laws and talk to a lawyer and things like that. So it is illegal, the discrimination, especially if it's a child, if it's someone underage, under 16. Even where are we talking about? While the reasons for the removal of these new videos is still a matter of speculation, it seems evidence that it is done hastily, with the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses unaware of what has taken place. So most people out there, Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're out there, you don't even know this is going on. So this AvoidJW, like I say, there's a lot of people working on the inside of these groups, helping and helping to bring justice and help the children. Another thing that we don't want to forget about, and it's creeping up on us, is BeFree2023.com. So please go to that site. The description is again in the video, just like we have the petition for Canada. You'll see Be Free. Click on that website, and if you're in the US, they could use your help. And you don't have to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness. You can be a Jehovah's Witness and go and picket. But you can be anybody that is standing up for what's right. And go to the site, and you'll. It's a very well done site, by the way. And again, this is all done by people potentially on the inside. We don't know, but there's a lot of people trying to help people breaking out of the Jehovah's Witness religion. So here we end up on this. All the same, the speech given by Wallington was no less potent. In his concluding remarks, the service department official says, "If a member of our family is disfellowshipped, our affection for them should not be greater than for our affection for Jehovah." You see, that's all Watchtower words. There's never any biblical words here on this disfellowshipping, and they'll try to use some of Paul's words and come up with reasons and so forth. But when it comes to asking questions and saying, I don't agree with 1914 and things like that, they cannot find that in the Bible. There's nothing in the Bible that supports disfellowshipping someone for asking a few questions. And that mother in the video probably just woke up, and now she's shunned by her daughter, and it's not fair. So I believe this will all come to an end if we all work together with these petitions, just like Norway did. It's a lot of work on the outside, but we all work together. All we need is support. If you know of Canadians, you can help us supporting. If you're in the US, help support them. The brothers, the group in the US, the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that are putting this together, a big thumbs up. So I want to move over to the home site of this site, and I think we covered those two videos off well. You go to the home site of AvoidJW.org, and you can submit documents here if you have documents. You can learn more about the governing body. You'll learn more on this site than you'll learn off JW.org, because this site's all honest. It's telling you everything. It's telling you both sides of the story. And you can look at the latest news. You see this one we just covered, the latest news. Jehovah's Witnesses mysteriously delete Shunning. And my work here is done. So I thought we could, maybe we could look at that one. My work here is done. And I looked at that. This is the creator of this website. And here he says, after almost 9 years of religious human rights activism, Jason Wine, if I'm saying that right, is retiring. Or Win. Maybe it's Jason Win. After recent news articles, a hard-hitting documentary involving Rebecca Vardy, the release of that latest edition of the Elders textbook, Shepherd the Flock, he says, my work here is done. So, thanks to Jason Wynn, you've done a great job. You guys encourage everyone to click in and read the little story here. It talks all about how everything was founded. I guess we have time. We could probably read a bit of this. Well, here it is. AvoidJW was founded in October 2014 after Jason Wynn discovered that Jehovah's Witnesses were using secret rule book and procedures against their members in their version of the confessional known as judicial committee meetings. Without having due process, the system is a flawed process causing untold harm to millions of members. The end result is that families are destroyed, relationships are severed, and the victims' lives have been changed forever. And isn't that true? That's what in all of our cases, for most of us that are online speaking out, like in my family is just completely blown up, demolished. No one talks to anybody. It's terrible. It's terrible how this cult indoctrination affects people, and even people that leave this cult. I know I had a good friend who was in it, and not even, he claims he was never baptized, but he was in it. But even getting out, all the thinking is harmed. So important to replace the doctrine with something else. Now let's get back to this article. Prior to AvoidJW, a former believing Jehovah's Witness shared information on the organization amongst themselves on various forums and throughout various media. While this helped educate ex-JWs, it didn't help the wider public understand how Jehovah's Witnesses managed to keep their more insidious aspects under wraps. Jason Wynn saw early on that it was important to get the secret policies and procedures out into the public to help governments, courts, police, and others understand how this organization operated. For decades, they have managed to keep their harmful practices out of public view, but that now has ended. In 2016, AvoidJW made public some of the shunning videos that Jehovah's Witnesses were showing to their members at their national conventions around the world. The intent of these videos was to direct members to shun close family members if they were not compliant with the organization's rules. This helped many to see that the shunning is promoted by the organization and not a few disgruntled former members having to go to religious groups, as claimed by the anonymous representatives as Jehovah of the public information. So what he's saying there's so much of a spin that Jehovah's Witnesses get out to the public. So this site is it's accurate, because these are people that are in the organization, have been in it, have experienced it, that are experiencing shunning currently today. So we can attest to this. In Russia, Jehovah's Witnesses spent a number of years going through the courts in an attempt to prevent the Russian authorities from banning their religious operations. This all culminated in a week-long hearing at the Russian Supreme Court in April of 2017, where they initially lied to the court about ownership of their properties. This was a futile attempt to hide who owns what initially they said properties were owned by individual JWs, and then they said the properties were owned by the American citizens. However, documents were sent to the Russian authorities that showed how the organization was trying to circumvent Russia law in an attempt to keep properties in the hands of Jehovah's Witnesses. Because of their lies, this exasperated the situation in Russia. The Russian Supreme Court not only banned them from opening in their country, but also confiscated all of their properties, worth around $100 million. Unfortunately, the organization cares more for its property portfolio than its members. And even today, Russian members are being used as guinea pigs as part of the religious group's persecution propaganda all over their properties. See, the Watchtower headquarters wants to own all the properties all over the world. Rather than the money staying in the country, the properties should be owned by the congregation. Each congregation would own the property. They paid for it, they contributed, but you see the governing body needs the money, so they want to sell all these properties off and make money and funnel the money to New York. Not fair. So they're being called. Russia called them on this. And you see, it's important that we get the other side of the story, because all we hear is poor Jehovah's Witnesses are persecuted in Russia. But they are. And it is poor Jehovah's Witnesses because of the donkeys in New York that are causing this persecution over property. All over property. Shame on the 9 members of the governing body. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses have a serious problem with child sex abuse within its ranks. One reason may be because Jehovah's Witnesses have an obsession with sex. The subject of sex, marriage, adultery, fornication, and masturbation are regularly discussed at congregation meetings. Children from newborns to late teens are not separated from their parents when such subjects are discussed. And I agree. They're fed this information constantly, and I remember it continually, and I wondered why they would do that. Is it any wonder then that many Jehovah's Witnesses have a distorted view of sex and sex-related matters? Obvious. In 1 year alone in Brazil, Jehovah's Witnesses had a huge increase in child sexual abuse cases, many involving appointed men. In the United States, there are continuous court cases where Jehovah's Witnesses are defending themselves against claims of abuse made against them. When it looks like they are going to lose the case, they quickly settle with the plaintiff and slap on a non-disclosure agreement so the public, particularly donators of funds, aka Believing Jehovah's Witnesses, are not aware of how much money they are spending on child sexual abuse. So they settle a case, and then they make the people sign a non-disclosure. So let's say I sue the Watchtower. The Watchtower says, okay, we'll pay you out, but you've got to sign this non-disclosure. So then I can't talk about the situation. And that's how they're trying to hide things. Excuse me. Okay, to carry on. Since 2016, abuse survivors no longer have to face their alleged perpetrator. However, further improvements are needed. Cases of child abuse are kept on file by Jehovah's Witnesses, but none of this information is shared with courts or police. Jehovah's Witnesses claim clergy penitent privilege. So here we go, they want to be just like the Catholic Church. Jehovah's Witnesses use a broad brush when it comes to clergy penitent privilege. This includes retaining information even where no confession has been forthcoming. Also, elders are still not permitted to report allegations of abuse to the secular authorities unless permitted by the regional headquarters, service department, the authorities. All allegations must first be reported to the authorities within Jehovah's Witnesses. So yeah, they have to go to the legal department in New York, or in Canada. I guess they go to the legal department in Canada, each country. Any deviation from this process will ensure swift deletion of an elder as an appointed member of the congregation. In 2022, Jehovah's Witnesses lost their registration as a religious group in Norway due to their extreme practice of shunning. All baptized members, including children who have been baptized, are required to comply fully with Jehovah's Witnesses rules. Any deviation from these rules could mean expulsion. The treatment of baptized persons is the same irrespective of age, and that's what we talked about. Once an elder makes a brief announcement that an individual is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, the congregation is put on notice to shun that person. So that's what they do now. They just say, so-and-so is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So then everyone disfellowships them. And they're discriminated too, because they're not treated the same as everyone else. The shunning is sustained until the person is reinstated as a member in good standing. If one is never reinstated, the shunning continues for the rest of the victim's life. Norway sees this as an infringement of a person's right to leave the religious group. According to Article 9 of the European Convention of Human Rights and Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a person has a right to change their beliefs or hold no belief without any coercion. And that's what Jehovah's Witnesses are doing. It's coercion. And the videos that we've seen, it's about embarrassing the mom or ignoring the mom and putting the mom in a place, turn the mom into a jellyfish so she crawls back into the organization to associate with her daughter. And that's what it's all about. The mom just couldn't leave. So religiously mandated shunning denies a person's rights, just human rights. And I think this is where they're going to fall in the whole world. The whole world is going to lock in on this organization because of the shunning. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They've already deleted these 2 videos. What are they going to do next? The loss of registration in Norway means that the religious groups are not permitted to perform legal marriages, nor are they permitted to receive state grants. This has no bearing on their right to practice their religion. This, therefore, is in no way comparable to the ban on Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia. To claim that it's an attack on a religious freedom is patently false. The government of Norway has no intention of forbidding Jehovah's Witnesses from practicing their extreme form of shunning. Rather, they are no longer funding it or providing the religious group with any form of financial privileges, while they continue to curb the religious freedoms of members who no longer want to practice their form of worship. And that's exactly what we need to bring to Canada. Norway's just ahead of us all. WIN's human rights activism has always been about bringing transparency to the more secretive aspects of Jehovah's Witnesses. Since 2014, he has felt that he has accomplished this. He has made various publications available to the public, including the Branch Organization Manual, Circuit Overseer Guidelines, Elders Textbook, confidential policy letters, various videos, among other things. So you folks, you can go onto this site and get a gazillion stuff like this. Jason has just done a fabulous job. These documents help empower victims, people like you and I, of Jehovah's Witnesses, to the point where the religious group now resorts to sophistry in an attempt to convince the public that former believers' claims are false. However, when the believers in so many countries are echoing the same complaints, it becomes more and more difficult for the Jehovah's Witnesses to distort the reality of the situation. So thankfully, governments, courts, police forces, and others are learning a lot more about this group and are no longer taking their statements as face value. Their deceit is beginning to wane. It is for this reason that WIN feels he has accomplished what he has set out to do. In his own words, he says, "My work here is done." Although WIN is leaving activism behind him, the work of AvoidJW.org will continue. It is imperative that the members and former members have access to confidential documents. Every single member of Jehovah's Witnesses has a right to due process. This is only achieved by having full knowledge of the procedures that are laid out in documents that are kept secret from ordinary members, particularly women. Until the organization becomes transparent, AvoidJW.org must continue to assist victims of ostracism, injustice, and deceit in Jehovah's Witnesses. So that was very nicely done. A big thumbs up to Jason, and we wish the best for him. Jason spent 9 years doing all this work. And it's a lot of work, and they don't have any advertising on this site. There's no advertising. They don't ask for contributions, they just do it. And that's a true charity, really, to help people. And there's other sites. There's the JW Child Abuse. That's another site that there's a lot of information on right now. And I think he has a link to it here. Maybe I've seen it in the other article. So we're going to go back to the home on this site, and I still haven't gone through all of this, but there's a lot of information. Videos removed from JW.org. From time to time, Jehovah's Witnesses remove videos. At other times, they create videos that they withhold from the public. We ensure those videos are accessible to all. I think this is just great. So we have announcements, elders' textbooks. You know, have you ever wondered what's in the elders' book? You know, as a Jehovah's Witness, I've never been an elder, so I've never been able to see what's in the elders' book. But all these secret letters, secret elders' books. And elders are not trained professionals. They're not trained family therapists. They don't take any schooling for psychology or learning how the human being works or any of this stuff. You know, for the most part, lots of the elders that I knew were janitors and window washers. Elders. You know, they had very low-key jobs. None of them that I knew went to university. I can't remember any. You know, there's some smart elders, self-taught, but for the most part, Jehovah's Witnesses train their people to be non-educated, to be simple. And this way they can indoctrinate them very easily. This stuff looks complicated. It looks like they're from God. And, you know, when you go to JW.org, you go to their website, they try to make it, you know, what does the Bible say about world military spending? Well, what the heck do they know what the Bible spends? We were looking at one on AI, and we're going to make a video on that, because what does the Bible say about AI? As if Jehovah's Witnesses know. And I went to the Bible, and the Bible says nothing about it, but yet, what does the Bible say about it? And they have something to say. So we're going to go into that probably tomorrow. But my good wife, thanks to her, she puts out a lot of the information, and I just cover it. So that brings our program, I think, to an end.
You have a few minutes.
And so we have a lot of people online here. We should say hi to a few of them.
Yeah, read some of the comments.
Let's go right to the top. I'm going to go all the way to the top. And just so you don't have to look at that screen, I'll give you this screen. There you go. So I'm going to go all the way to the top. You see Rusty. Okay, so we're coming down. Which comment? Shunning. Yeah, Jane Spitfire. Shunning breaks up families. I thought people have a right to worship you. Yeah. Shunning is a bad. It's just terrible. We talked about that on some other shows. Kate Drazalot, how are you doing? We see you a lot. Thanks for joining us today. I think when you live with someone that's shunned, I know in my family we lived with people that were shunned. They had to. No one ate at the table. It really breaks the family up internally because no one ate. There was no longer like a family meal prayer where everyone sat down. Everyone ate in front of a TV. The kids would go downstairs and eat. And the ex would eat in front of a TV, and I'd go to McDonald's and go out in service. It was a mess. It was a really mess, and yet that's what we strive to do as a JW. Go out in service. That fixes everything. Right. Okay. Marina Thorne, how you doing? Thanks for joining us today. And there's a lot happening, I think, in the organization. I think there's a lot more that's going to happen in the U.S. It's with all of these lawsuits. All these lawsuits are costing so much money. There's so much publicity now. Tall, cool woman, hello. Thanks for joining us today and supporting the channel. We appreciate all your comments. And self-aware NPC. Unfortunately, in Canada, the Supreme Court in 2018 ruled that religious groups can decide their own memberships and rules. Highwood Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses Judicial Committee. I looked at that. But that's the one in Calgary, the Highwood, I believe, if that's the one, V. Wall. And he was, he lost a lot of contracts. He was disfellowshipped. And but then they brought out in court all the reasons why he was disfellowshipped, and to any judge looking at that, you'd think, yeah, I would disfellowship him too. But he wasn't the cleanest guy. He got really pissed off, and he went after them, and he sued them for shunning. And you can't sue them for shunning. You got to get them for discrimination. I read through that one, and then you got to do it within a year. But there is discrimination. I would like to see if some of this stuff didn't have a timeline on it, but it looks like we were looking in Ontario and Alberta, and it all has a timeline. Marina Thorne. I think you're right. The best way to go after these groups is and my wife says, you can spend your whole life and all your money feeding lawyers and trying to fight the Watchtower, and it's not worth it. What's worth it is if we get as a voice, we work together as a voice, and just like Norway, we stop. They can practice their cultish religion. They can have it. We don't care. We're outside of it. But now, as taxpayers, do we want to be funding that cult? No. I do not want any of my tax money going to a cult that shuns me and shuns everybody else that way. That's how we're going after that, just like in Norway. Can you sue them? Probably not. It's hard. Hard to sue the Watchtower, unless there's a class action. And there may be class actions that'll come. It's hard to say. Who else is online? Jane. Well, you guys are really talking a lot. That's good. Appreciate that. I'm glad that we can provide the channel. And for anybody that's out there that hasn't had a chance to come online and chat, please do and get to know the community. You might be nervous at first, but everyone's really good. Hey Jay, how you doing? Tax the cults, I agree. So anybody online and you haven't yet got into the chatting is really good therapy if you're an ex-JW or you're coming out, waking up. Maybe you're in it still, you're curious. But this is a group of people that there's no hate, there's no discrimination, there's no judging. And this group of people here is just great. So thanks again, guys. Big thumbs up. And we're going to close the program here with a little outro. Now in my new studio. Too bad I couldn't turn everything on and show you what it is. Maybe next time. But we can now do, we have a larger green screen so we can walk around. And I'm trying some skydiving. So tune in next week and hopefully I'll have a skydiving video for you. Anybody ever skydive? My good wife skydived. So she skydived once. She's way braver than I am. And she skydived and she landed and everything's okay. But she skydived and her dad broke his leg. She was skydiving and her dad was running, and he tripped and fell and broke his leg with the video camera. And when she fell, I don't know if he missed the shot or not, but my good wife, she's a skydiver. So she had me moving and doing all the moves, and we're going to green screen this and see what we can come up with. So thanks again, guys, and until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.